Big shout out to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello, fine fellow, for the inspiration behind today's deep dive. We're diving into something every D&D player and dungeon master craves. Getting players real choices, not just the illusion of choice.
Right.
This roadmap method from a recent LitRPG Reads article really caught my eye, and I'm stoked to explore it with you.
I am too. I think we all have stories about those moments when a player's choice completely flips the script. Just the other week in my game, the players were facing down this huge, terrifying golem. I mean, this thing was straight out of Nightmare. Everyone was ready for an epic battle. And then one of the players decides to try and befriend the golem.
Wow.
Talk about a curveball. It totally threw me off, but we ended up role-playing this hilarious scene where they tried to convince this giant lumbering creature that they were on the same side.
That's awesome. See, that's the kind of magic we're talking about today. So this roadmap method, it's all about finding that sweet spot between having a compelling story as a dungeon master and letting the players make choices that actually matter. It's not about railroading them, but about giving them some epic destinations and letting them choose how they get there.
Right, exactly. It's like creating this map with all these cool landmarks, but instead of one set path, you offer multiple trails, hidden shortcuts, and maybe even a treacherous mountain range for the daring adventurers.
The article breaks down the roadmap into these key parts, the overarching themes, those big story milestones, and then the flexible paths players can choose. And the big thing is, those choices have consequences. The article even lays out how failing a mission could trigger a war, or how siding with a particular faction could reshape the political landscape of the entire campaign.
Consequences are the spice of life, right? Suddenly that choice between fighting or diplomacy becomes a lot more interesting when, it could tip the scales of power.
The article even has this awesome table called Designing Choices that really drives home the point. It shows how even seemingly small choices, like whether to rescue hostages or chase treasure, can have these ripple effects that touch everything from character relationships to entire factions.
I think that table is gold for any DM. It's like a cheat sheet for creating choices that matter, choices that make the players feel like their actions are shaping the world around them.
Totally. Now, the article also dives into the nitty-gritty of making those choices truly meaningful. It's not just about picking path A or path B, it's about creating scenarios where those choices affect not just what happens in the story, but also the players' characters themselves, their personalities, their relationships, how they grow.
Yeah, it's about creating choices that resonate on a personal level. Like, imagine a scenario where the players have to choose between upholding the law or protecting someone they care about. Those kinds of choices force them to wrestle with their characters' values and make decisions that shape who they become.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting for a DM, because sometimes players will come up with choices you never anticipated. They go completely off the map. The article actually talks about this, and it offers some great advice on how to adapt on the fly, like having these flexible NPCs and being ready to improvise.
Oh man, improvisation is the DM's secret weapon. I remember one time my players were supposed to infiltrate this bandit camp, but instead they decided to set the whole forest on fire to distract the bandits. I mean, it was crazy, totally unexpected, but it ended up being this epic, chaotic battle that everyone still talks about.
See, that's the kind of stuff that makes D&D so awesome. Now, the article also touches on this idea of choice fatigue, which I think we've all experienced. If you give players too many choices, it can be overwhelming, right?
Oh, absolutely. Analysis paralysis is a real thing. Sometimes too much freedom can actually make players feel less invested because they get so caught up in weighing every possible outcome.
Right. So the article suggests some strategies for avoiding that, like making sure the choices tie into the player's goals, making sure the consequences are clear, and not overloading them with decisions at every turn. It's about making each choice feel important, not just another option on a menu.
And I think it's also about knowing your players. Some groups thrive on open-ended scenarios, while others need a little more guidance. A good DM can sense what their group needs and adjust accordingly.
That's a great point. Now, here's the thing I love about this roadmap method. The article makes it clear that it's not some rigid system. It's more like a tool that you can adapt and change as your campaign evolves. They talk about weaving in player backstories, adding new milestones as needed, and really letting the roadmap reflect the choices the players are making.
I love that approach. It's about treating the roadmap as a living document, something that grows and changes alongside the campaign. It keeps things fresh and exciting for everyone.
Now, I'm curious, you mentioned your players trying to befriend that golem. What happened after that? Did they manage to convince it?
Well, it didn't go exactly as planned. But that's a story for another time. We'll have to dive into that later.
Perfect. We'll definitely have to revisit that.
Yeah.
But for now, let's move on and explore some more of the specific techniques the article lays out for using this roadmap method.
One thing that really grabbed me about the roadmap method is the emphasis on themes. It's not just about plotting events, but about figuring out the big ideas, those underlying currents that give the story its heart.
I love that. It's like before you even start mapping out the journey, you figure out the soul of the adventure. Are we talking redemption, a power struggle, a classic epic quest?
Right, and those themes become like a guiding star for both the dungeon master and the players. The DM can use them to craft scenarios and encounters, and the players, through their choices, get to decide how their characters embody or maybe even challenge those themes.
The article even mentioned that these themes can be reflected in the world itself. Like, if the theme is isolation, maybe there are these vast empty landscapes or cities that have walled themselves off from the outside world.
Ooh, I like that. And if the theme is about breaking free from tradition, maybe the players encounter ancient rituals that are starting to crumble, or maybe they meet NPCs who are rebelling against the established order.
Exactly. It's like those themes become woven into the very fabric of the campaign. And speaking of things that shape the world, the article also talks a lot about stakes. What's at risk? What are the potential rewards for success or the consequences of failure?
Stakes are what make the players hold their breath when they roll the dice. Without them, it's easy for a campaign to feel like a series of disconnected events. But when you know that your choices could lead to war or famine or the downfall of an entire kingdom, suddenly every decision feels weighty.
I totally agree. I remember this one campaign where the world was on the brink of this massive magical apocalypse. Every choice we made felt like it was pushing us closer to either saving the world or watching it burn. It was intense.
That's what we're aiming for as DMs, right? Those moments where the players are leaning in, completely engrossed in the story because they know what's at stake.
And you know what else helps build that tension? Foreshadowing. Dropping little hints about what might be coming without giving too much away.
Oh, foreshadowing is an art form. It's like planting seeds of intrigue that will blossom into full-blown plot twists later on. Maybe there's a seemingly random encounter with a mysterious traveler who warns the players about an ancient evil. Or maybe they find a cryptic prophecy hidden in the ruins of a long-lost temple.
Those little details can make the world feel so much richer and more immersive. And they make the players feel like they're piecing together a puzzle, trying to figure out what's really going on.
And sometimes those little clues can actually influence the players' choices. Like if they keep hearing whispers about a powerful artifact, they might be more likely to go on a quest to find it.
That's a great point. You're almost planting these subconscious seeds that can guide their decisions without railroading them. They still have agency, but you're subtly nudging them towards these key points in the roadmap.
Exactly. It's all about that balance between structure and freedom. You don't want the players to feel like they're on rails, but you also want to ensure that the story has direction and purpose.
And that's where the DM's ability to adapt comes into play. Because no matter how carefully you plan, the players are going to throw you curveball.
Oh, absolutely. Players are masters of chaos. They'll find a way to derail your best-laid plans, but that's what makes it so much fun.
That's like you're playing a game of chess where the pieces have a mind of their own.
Exactly. You have to be flexible, willing to improvise, and maybe even embrace the chaos. Sometimes the best stories come from those unexpected moments when the players go off script.
I remember this one campaign where the players were supposed to negotiate a peace treaty between two warring factions. But instead, they ended up convincing both sides to join forces and declare war on a third, completely unrelated faction. It was brilliant.
See, that's the kind of stuff you can't plan for. But that's where the real magic happens, in those moments of spontaneous creativity.
Speaking of creating magic, the article goes into some really practical advice about designing choices that feel impactful choices, that resonate with the players on a deeper level.
And it emphasizes that those choices don't always have to be about saving the world. Sometimes the most meaningful choices are the ones that explore the nuances of morality, the complexities of relationships, the ripples that even seemingly small actions can create.
Right. The article gives a great example of choosing between allying with rebels or nobles. It's not a black and white good versus evil decision. Both sides have their own motivations and flaws, and the consequences of siding with one over the other can be far-reaching.
And that's where the DM can really flex their creative muscles. You can create these intricate webs of alliances and rivalries, and the players' choices can shift the balance of power in all sorts of unexpected ways.
And the article also stresses that those choices should be tied to the players' goals and motivations.
Yeah.
What are their characters trying to achieve? What do they care about?
Right. If the choices are relevant to the player's goals, they'll be more invested in the outcome, and those choices will feel like they're shaping not just the world, but their characters' destinies as well.
Absolutely. And on that note, the article also talks about the importance of avoiding choice fatigue.
Oh, choice fatigue is a real trap for DMs.
Right.
We get so excited about giving our players freedom that we end up overwhelming them with decisions at every turn.
I've been there. I remember trying to create this super branching narrative with a million different paths, and it just ended up confusing everyone, including me.
It's like trying to choose from a menu with 100 different dishes. Sometimes less is more.
The article suggests some great strategies for avoiding choice fatigue, like making sure choices are distinct and have clear consequences, and ensuring that they align with the overall narrative arc.
It's also about finding that sweet spot between offering options and providing guidance. Sometimes the players need a little nudge in the right direction, especially if they're feeling lost or overwhelmed.
That's so true. And that brings us to the topic of adapting to player decisions in real time. Because let's face it, players are unpredictable creatures.
Oh, they're masters of improvisation, always finding new and creative ways to subvert our expectations.
You know, one of the things I really appreciate about this whole roadmap method is how it encourages us to think about the long game. It's not just about what happens in the next session. It's about how our choices ripple outwards and shape the world for sessions to come.
Absolutely. It's like creating a legacy. The players' actions have consequences that can echo throughout the campaign, shaping the fate of nations, influencing the course of history. It's pretty epic when you think about it.
The article even talked about these things called legacy plots, storylines that emerge from the players' choices and then continue to impact the world long after the campaign has ended.
I love that concept. Imagine years later, the players hear stories about how the kingdom they helped establish is thriving, or how the ancient evil they defeated is still spoken of in hushed tones. It's like their actions become woven into the mythology of the world.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. It really elevates the stakes and makes the players feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
And I think that's what separates a good D&D campaign from a truly great one. That sense of lasting impact, that feeling that you've left your mark on the world.
You know, one of the challenges of DMing is finding that balance between giving players freedom and making sure the story feels cohesive. It's easy to fall into the trap of railroading them or to swing too far the other way and end up with a campaign that feels aimless.
The roadmap method helps us walk that tightrope. It gives us a structure to work with, but it also allows for plenty of player agency. It's about creating a collaborative storytelling experience where everyone feels like they're contributing to something special.
I think that's what makes D&D so unique. It's a game that encourages us to think creatively, to come up with solutions to problems that we never could have imagined on our own.
And the roadmap method helps to foster that creativity. It gives players the freedom to experiment, to try new things, and to see what happens.
It's about embracing the unknown and finding joy in the unexpected. Like, remember your players setting the forest on fire. That was pure chaos, but it also led to this amazing, unforgettable moment.
Exactly. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that we don't plan for, the ones that emerge organically from the interplay between the DM and the players.
And speaking of creating unforgettable moments, one of the things I'm always looking for in a D&D campaign is a sense of wonder. That feeling of being transported to another world where anything is possible.
Me too. That's what drew me to D&D in the first place. The escapism, the sense of adventure, the possibility of exploring worlds beyond our wildest imaginations.
And I think the roadmap method helps to create that sense of wonder. Yeah. It encourages us to think big, to imagine worlds that are vast and complex, and to tell stories that are epic in scope.
It's about filling the world with mysteries and secrets waiting to be uncovered, with ancient ruins and forgotten lore, with strange creatures and wondrous magic.
It's about giving the players that feeling that they're only scratching the surface of something much larger and more profound.
And that sense of discovery, that feeling that there's always something more to learn and explore, that's what keeps us coming back to D&D session after session, campaign after campaign.
You know, one of the things I'm really grateful for is the community of D&D players and DMs. It's such a supportive and inspiring group of people.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, sharing ideas, swapping stories, and helping each other to become better storytellers.
And I think the roadmap method is a great example of that collaborative spirit. It's a tool that was developed by DMs for DMs.
And it's something that we can all benefit from using. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or a brand new DM, the Roadmap Method can help you create truly unforgettable D&D campaigns.
So if you're looking for a way to level up your DM game, I highly recommend giving it a try.
And don't forget to check out the original article on LitRPG Reads. They have a ton of great resources for D&D players and DMs.
And of course, a huge shout out to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for inspiring this deep dive.
He is a true champion of player agency and meaningful choices in D&D, and this Roadmap Method is a testament to his passion for the game.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final thought. The Roadmap Method is a powerful tool, but it's ultimately up to you, the DM, to bring it to life. So use your imagination, experiment. Don't be afraid to break the rules, and most importantly, have fun.
Because the best D&D campaigns are the ones that are uniquely your own, the ones that reflect your passion for the game and your love of storytelling.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Roadmap Method. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
And we can't wait to hear about all the amazing campaigns you create using this incredible tool.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Roadmap Method. Have you tried it before? What are some of your favorite techniques for giving players meaningful choices in your D&D games? Leave a comment below and let's discuss it.
Until next time, happy gaming.